occult world. Now, if we're to tell everyone we're Christians, then it's time we start acting like them. And it's time we start taking practices like Valentine's Day and start practicing them. Stop growing your children, to believe in these things. You need to stop doing these things. You need to just stop sending out those cards and everything. You need to just stop it, period. The next night of human sacrifice we must consider is the night of Imbolg. Now, coincidentally enough, or maybe not coincidentally enough, we have another holiday, if you would, going on at the same time. And it is known as Groundhog's Day. Now, what could possibly be so harmful about having, a furry, cuddly, cute little creature and having a holiday about it? What could possibly be so harmful about it? Well, on the surface, absolutely nothing. However, when we get into it and take a look at it for what it is, then it will become quite obvious that there's a lot wrong with it. You see, during this part of the year, this goddess has already gone into the earth. You see, the belief is, during the nights of Samhain, Halloween, the stag god takes over the rulership of the earth for the next 6 months. On May 1st, the night of Beltane, the goddess comes back in her full glory, and she rules the earth for the next 6 months. Now, before May 1st, there's going to be signs of her reawakening, or reincarnation. And this begins slowly during February 1st, or 2nd, during the night of Imbolg, or what we call Groundhog's Day. And she will slowly come back on March 21st as the spring goddess. She'll come back as a spring goddess. May 1st, she comes back in her full glory as the mature mother. And then when she enters into the earth, she leaves as the old crone. It is the 3 phases of the goddess. She comes back as a young maiden, then she comes back as a full goddess, and she goes back as, the old crone, and stays there for 6 months. Now, as the seasons are changing, the weather, as you well know, is going to be changing with it. So by February, it's, people are getting antsy. They're trying to determine, well, are we going to have a short winter or a long winter? Well, the common thing it seems to do is to grab a groundhog, hold him up into the sky, and see if his shadow is going to land on the ground. Well, if his shadow is on the ground, I believe it's going to be a shorter winter. If he doesn't see his shadow, it's supposed to be a longer winter. To me, it doesn't matter. But for some reason, we are taking a little fur ball, holding it up, and thinking that we could divine the future from it. Now, this is absolute codswallop, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even know how they came up with this one, but it's ridiculous. But it has a lot to do with the occult, and I'll explain why. The Earth Mother, as I said before, she is in a state of hibernation right now in the earth because of the colder weather. The groundhog himself, at this stage, is also in a state of hibernation. The Earth Mother is obviously an earth creature. Well, the groundhog is also an earth creature. And we go through this. The goddess herself is reawakening and coming back during the springtime. The groundhog is also doing the same thing. He sleeps during the winter, and he's coming back during the springtime. And this happens because the goddess herself enters into the state of hibernation during the winter season. And this is what the groundhog is also doing. He goes back into the earth and hibernates during the winter season. The earth goddess is between 2 seasons. She hibernates in between the winter and the springtime. And this is exactly what the groundhog is also doing. He's going in between 2 times. He starts his hibernation once winter begins, and he will begin to come out of it during spring. And the earth goddess represents renewal and rebirth. And this is exactly what the groundhog also represents. He brings back the renewal and the rebirth of spring itself. You see, you can't separate the occult from Groundhog's Day, no matter how hard you try. You see, according to this wonderful picture here, the practice of grabbing a groundhog and holding him up in the air and trying to divine the future is done through this little creature known as Punxsutawney Phil. Now, there was an inner circle of 13 people, 13 mind you, all dressed in black, who is responsible for the care and maintenance of this little creature and for making the proclamation that it is time for Punxsutawney Phil, that is this little creature's name, and that they are going to, of course, go through the ceremony of holding this poor little creature in the air and seeing if they're divining the future. Well, I have to tell you, out of curiosity, I had to find out how accurate Punxsutawney Phil was. He's only, ever since this practice began, I believe it's been a little bit more than a century now, he's only been accurate a little bit more than 30% of the time. And that's it. So, yeah, we are now looking forward every year to grabbing a groundhog, holding him up to the heaven, and trying to figure out if it's going to be a long or short season. I think the long and short of it is that people have finally lost their reasoning. I think they're becoming absolute mad. I think they're becoming barking loons here. I mean, something has to be terribly wrong when you actually think you can hold up a woodland creature, a cute furry little thing, and divine the future from them. But what I think is interesting and very diabolic is how the Illuminati was able to integrate and create Groundhog's Day, put everything about the becoming birth of the spring goddess and mesh them together to where you could not tell that the practice of Groundhog's Day was as dangerous as it is. I mean, come on, ladies and gentlemen. Why don't we just go up here, realize this is wrong, and call a halt to it once and for all? Because when we think we can actually hold an animal up and divine the future, something's wrong. But when we take a look at it for what it is and realize it is nothing more than another occult holiday, another Sabbath, we must stop this practice once and for all. It is on May 1st where the second highest night of all the 8 nights of human sacrifice, known as Beltane, is begun. On May 1st, we also have another holiday, which we call May Day. Now, May Day is based on the belief that the Earth Mother has now come back in all her full glory, commonly referred to as Gaia. She's depicted here in the center, holding her infant children again. Gaia is supposed to be the Earth Mother. She has come back after hibernating in the earth for 6 months, going through the nights of Imbolg, which, if you remember, is Groundhog's Day. She has also passed through the spring equinox, which is on March 21st, where she was beginning to come back as the spring goddess. And now she is in her full glory, her full mature glory as Gaia, the Earth Mother. Now, one of the many depictions of Gaia is also through the goddess known as Aphrodite. Aphrodite was also an Earth Goddess Mother, if you would, or Earth Mother Goddess. And it was during this time of the year that she would come back in full glory. Now, according to customs and practices, on April 30th, which is also known in the occult world as Walpurgisnacht, great bale fires, or what you call bonfires nowadays, would be lit. Bale fires was the original term because they would be worshiping Baal. These great bonfires would be lit so that the Earth Mother would be welcomed back in all her glory on May 1st. And it's also these bale fires to which human sacrifice offerings had been made unto the Earth Goddess. Now, part of the practice of May Day is that usually a 10-foot pole is erected in the ground and colored ribbons are streaming down. This practice, as you could well guess, is known as the Maypole dance, or, the May dance. You will notice that there is a boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl going all the way around. And the boys are supposed to dance in one direction, while the ladies are supposed to dance in the counterclock direction. And they dance in between and around each other, so that these ribbons slowly tie themselves together all the way down the maypole. Now, this is nothing but a fertility dance that goes back into the occult world. You see, the maypole itself represents the male phallic symbol, and they dance in this circle, which represents the female reproductive organs, and by intertwining the ribbons themselves, this shows the act of procreation. That's all this dance is a dance to honor the fertility goddess in all her glory, Mother Gaia. Now, throughout this day, it was believed that there was these little fairy creatures, and they were called fairy creatures. They're not, the little Tinkerbell, sweet little things that Disney and the others try to push off on us. They were bad little mischievous creatures who would roam throughout the countryside on Beltane and give everyone grief. So, in order to keep these creatures under control, excuse me, white hawthorn was used. White hawthorn would be tied in ladies' hair. Some would tie them around the front doors and the back doors and windows of their homes. And but it was believed white hawthorn and the sound of bells would drive these evil little creatures away. Now, the practice, and it still goes on to this very day, that there is a May Queen and a May King. This May Queen is nothing but the Queen of the Earth, Gaia, or if we take it all the way back to the origin, Queen Semiramis. And I love these old photos. You will see this young lady here has been crowned as the May Queen, and over here would be the young man who was crowned the May King. And there would be, usually back then, a huge parade, and they would be touted down Main Street, and this, again, was supposed to be a harmless practice, but you were actually honoring the spring goddess, well, I should say the Earth Mother Goddess, and her consort, her son, Nimrod. And one of the last, what they used to do, and I remember this, a lot of them, the Earth Goddess, would actually be put in these little niches or temple-like areas where they were supposed to remain for the whole day, because they were supposed to be representing the Earth Goddess, and because of this representation, that country or that county was supposed to receive her blessings so long as this young lady would remain there for the day. And so, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, this again is just another perversion of an occult Sabbath or occult holiday that's been going on for thousands of years. This particular one is known as May Day. May Day has absolutely nothing to do with Christianity. And I personally hope that Christians don't have anything to do with this particular day, but in the occult world, the spiral dance of the maypole still goes on to this very day. As I said before, Gaia is supposed to be a fertility goddess. And so these